Hi, everyone. Welcome on to Branded, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and beyond the brand. My name is Sarah Glenn. So happy to have you today. And today's episode is all about the big vision. And specifically, I want to talk about what is that big vision going to cost you? Now, this might sound a little like, oh my gosh, I have to sacrifice in order to have the things that I desire. Yes, you do. Your big vision, that big realized dream that you have, will mean that something that currently exists in the life that you're living right now has to change. And that's okay. That's actually really a beautiful thing if you truly embrace the idea of evolving into that big vision, right? Allowing it to come to fruition. So, having this big, scary, hairy vision, it means something in your life has to change, right? Where in your current life do you have to pivot or adjust in order to have and align yourself to the vision that you want? Is there something you have to pivot and adjust in order to activate part of your life to align with that big vision? So sometimes people will ask themselves, right? They see somebody having and experiencing something that they themselves want. And what you really should be asking yourself when you see that happening and you have that sensation of just you're in awe, you're inspired, right? You're like, yes, that's going to be me. Ask yourself, what is it that they had to do in order to have this abundant life? What price did they have to pay? Now, I'm not saying that in order to have something great, you always have to sacrifice, but there is a universal law that there has to be space in your life to hold the thing that you want. So if you are filling your life up with all of these things that you don't want, and then you're sitting there wondering why you aren't seeing the things that you do want, it's because you don't have space for it. A while back, actually, I was in a coaching session with one of the business coaches that I had hired at the time, and we were talking about a very similar concept, actually. I wasn't thinking about this earlier when I was thinking about this podcast episode, but it totally aligns. She was telling a story about how there was this woman who was really wanted the perfect partner. She was just craving that loving relationship. She wanted that love in her life. Yet she parked her car in the middle of the garage. She filled up every drawer and all the space in her closet. She used all the space in her bathroom. So quite literally, there was no space in her physical life. There was no space for another person to exist. There wasn't space for another car. There wasn't space for their clothes. There wasn't space for their toothbrush and all their things they use in the bathroom, right? So why on earth would life give her a person when she made no space for that person? This concept flows into everything. If you want something in your life, you have to make the space for it. So when you see somebody achieving the things you want to achieve, having that abundance that you want for yourself, ask yourself, what price did they have to pay in order to have this abundant life? Because I guarantee they had to shed something that no longer served them in order to make space for something that did. So what will your big vision cost you? And this is a potentially not fun exercise or conversation to have with yourself, because we don't want to get rid of things, right? Innately, we like to hang on to things that have memories that maybe at one point in time really served us well. And it's hard to let go of stuff. But you really, really have to face that conversation from the perspective of the future you. Is the future you hanging on to clothes that she hasn't worn in 10 years? No. Her closet is full of things that fit her perfectly and that make her feel amazing. And that's it. Right? I use that as an example because that's something that I am slowly but surely transitioning my closet to. I don't need all the extra things. I don't need the things that I think I'm going to wear one day. I don't need the things that, oh, one day I'll fit back into that. I don't need that in my life. It is taking up space that is very valuable for something else to be there. But that's a harsh truth you have to face. And, this isn't just monetarily, right? Like mentally, emotionally, creatively, relationally, you have to understand that something will inevitably have to shed to make space for that big vision to take shape. And so, what things are no longer serving you, right? Think about the things that you're doing on a daily basis. How much of it is actually yielding a result and moving the needle in your business or your life? And how much of it are you just doing for the sake of having always done it? Determining what your new habits should be it's like an absolute must in order for a new big vision to start to take shape. Like, you have to understand what those habits are. So if you missed last week's episode, we were talking about consistency and how passion plus discipline will get you the consistency that you ultimately need to live the life you want to live, to run the business that you want to run, right? But understanding what are those new habits that align with your passion, those new habits that align with your new disciplines, those new habits that align with your big vision. Create those habits little by little every single day. And honestly, you'll start shedding the things that no longer serve you without even trying. If you get really intentional and what's the word I'm looking for here? If you get really intentional and focused on your big vision and understanding that there is a price to pay in order to have the abundance that you seek, and not a price to pay as in it's going to just take every bit and part of you in order to get that, but the price to pay that you shed things you don't need anymore. And so it really becomes like a shift in consciousness that you feel that you're taking actions on things that make you feel more expanded, right? You shift your consciousness to know that the actions that you're taking are serving you. And they're not just busy work. And it's not just for the sake of doing, of, feeling like, okay, I got to get something done today, so let me just do this. If you approach it with that kind of mentality, I mean, you might as well just not do it. Have intention. So when I was thinking about this concept for this podcast, and I was thinking about the big vision, something that I'm constantly reminded of, and honestly, every time I'm reminded of it, it's kind of wild. Your RAS system in your brain, your reticular activator, is constantly being triggered, right? Sometimes we notice it, sometimes we don't. But when you align yourself, you align your actions, your consciousness to the vision that you are creating, the life that you're creating, the business that you're creating, the health that you want to have, the relationship that you want to have, any of these things. When you align your consciousness to that vision, your RAS system will inevitably be activated and triggered when those moments present themselves. So it's one of those things where, like, think of it as there's a radio station out there. The radio station is playing regardless of whether you hear it or not. It's live, it's playing. Some people out there are hearing it. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But that particular station, that particular frequency is something that you want. You want to hear that radio station. Now, the only way you're going to hear it is if you tune into it. So the moment you tune into that frequency, you hear it clear as day. It's already playing. It already exists out in the world and in your life. It is already in existence. But previous to now, you simply just weren't tuned into it, so you didn't hear it. And that's a little bit how your RAS system works, is the moment you tune yourself into that consciousness and that intention of your big vision, every little action you take and all of these instances that you have day in and day out, it will start activating that RAS system in your brain, and you will start seeing proof all around you that what you want is already on its way to you. Like, it's already happening. And the only thing that needed to really happen to help activate it and really propel it into motion was for you to tune into it. And so it's like this really spectacular, incredible thing that every time I realize my RAS system has kicked in, it almost feels like deja vu sometimes, where you have this notion of like, yes, I've been asking to experience this. I've been asking like the universe to show me a sign, right? I've been seeking experience of this capacity. Boom, there it is. You tell somebody, don't think about an elephant, they think about an elephant. You tell someone, oh, nobody drives green cars anymore. Guarantee you the next time they go out to drive, they're seeing green cars everywhere because they're tuned into that frequency and they're looking for that thing. So how you live your day is how your next day develops, and the day after that, and the day after that. And that's why, especially people in like the entrepreneurial world will say, give yourself 90 days, because that compounded effort of really, really specific intention and action will create the result you're looking for. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but 30, 60, 90 days from now, you will be amazed at what can be accomplished when you tune into the frequency of what your vision requires. And you start shedding the stuff that just doesn't serve you anymore. It does not propel you towards that big vision. So what will your big vision cost you? It will cost you your old life. It will cost you the life that you have expressed you no longer want to participate in, right? You want to create something new. You want to experience something new. Well, in order to do that, the old has to be released. And that doesn't mean everything in your life has to be completely turned over. No, it's only the things that you know that you are not aligned with anymore. It could be an old friend that you've had. It could be the clothes that you're wearing. It could be a haircut, right? It could be your exercise routine. It could be anything that is a familiar like groove, a familiar grain that just doesn't serve you anymore. And when you do that, it's a super huge step because it's taking action and it's activating that frequency, like I was saying. So you start to notice all these synchronicities around you. It's really, really fucking cool. I read a quote the other day. Let me see if I can find it here. So we see the world and what's possible through the filters of what we're interested and invested in. And this is really true. This is that RAS system working right there, right? We see the world and what's possible through the filters of what we're interested in and invested in. So you have to decide what it is you're focusing on. What TV shows are you watching? What books are you reading? What people are you talking to? What kind of content are you consuming on social media? Are these things helping to support that big vision that you have? And if they're not, then that's where I would start, right? Start with your social media and your television. Start there, because it doesn't have to get super personal with like a friend or, anybody else like that. Start with those things. If what you're scrolling on social isn't serving you, do less of it. Do it more intentionally. If what you're watching on television is not tuning you into that frequency of what your vision is, watch something different or watch less of it, right? For example, with social media, originally, I thought that I needed to be on it all the time in order to connect to my dream client, in order to be seen by the people that I wanted to, have in my audience. I thought I had to be on it all the time. All that did was burn me out. It did not heighten my ability to actually connect with people. If anything, it drained me. It was not the frequency I needed to be tuned into. It was not the thing that was serving me and getting me closer to my big vision. And so, without asking anybody's permission, I stopped posting every day of the week. I stopped being on social media. I stopped scrolling almost altogether. It is very rare that I ever even scroll social media. I get on there with intention, because that is what serves my higher vision for myself and my business. So you have to understand, what is the cost that you are going to pay in order to reach the goals that you want to have. Because there will always be a price to pay, but that can be a really good thing. Sometimes we get really wrapped up in our routines and we don't allow expansion and new things to present themselves in our lives. And so sometimes it can feel very jarring to make these kinds of changes, especially if you're someone who hasn't made change previously. Like now, where I'm at now in my life, I make changes and am evolving on like probably every 3 days. Something new is happening. Some sort of decision is happening where I'm having to decide, okay, I'm going to stop doing this so I can start doing this. There's only so much time in the day. So you have to be very cut and dry with like, this is serving me and this is not. Now, 4 years ago, I did not have that mentality. I wasn't as aware, and I just hadn't been presented with the ideology of it. And so that first year or so where I was figuring out how to build a business and all of these things, every single day felt really fucking hard. Like, because I was learning something new about myself almost every day. I was learning things I didn't like about myself almost every day. I was having to face my truths of like, these are hard and fast beliefs that I've had for over 30 years. And now I'm questioning them and I'm deciding to have different beliefs and views. Being okay with having a big vision for yourself in and of itself is a huge undertaking. I get it. A lot of us aren't necessarily encouraged to have big visions, right? We're just sort of like, go with the grain. And that's okay if that's like where you're at. But if you want something different, it's going to cost you your old life. And that's just what it is. But I'm here to tell you, it's fucking phenomenal. Because what's on the other side, I mean, there's so much growth and newness. Like, I never would have thought that let's see, what am I, 36 right now? I never would have thought that at the age of 36, I would be learning more about myself than I ever have. Never did that cross my mind. But I'm so glad that I am, because it's creating all of these, it's like activating all of these new possibilities in my life that are so for me, like so juicy, so much joy, so much more than I ever could have imagined. So shedding the old I'm so glad I did it. And yeah, it was uncomfortable and it wasn't super fun, but holy shit, it's worth it. So ask yourself, what will your big vision cost you? Where in your current life are you willing to make that pivot and make that adjustment so you can align and activate that big vision? Something to think about. All right, you guys, I'll come back to a new episode next week. I'll see you. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.